The world's worst children. Dribbling Drew. Once upon a time there was a boy named Drew. He dribbled a lot. This wasn't just a normal everyday dribbling. The odd gobbledygob running down his chin. Oh no. This was dribbling on an industrial scale. Here was a boy who could dribble a litre upon litre every day. Now, you may wonder why Dribbling Drew dribbled so much. Well, it was because he was an incredibly lazy individual. If he could, he would sleep 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And, as Drew snoozed, he drooled. Zzz, plop, zzz, plop, went the drool as it landed on the floor. On school mornings, the boy would have to be dragged out of bed by his feet. If he had it his way, Drew would be wheeled to school every morning by his bed, and, as soon as he arrived at school, he would go straight back to sleep. Zzz, plop, zzz, plop. Drew liked nothing more than having nice long naps during his lessons. He had even been known to take a sleeping bag into school. That way, he could doze through every single subject. PE was a hard one to sleep through, but Drew found a way. For example, during football matches, he would ask to be in goal and then climb to the top of the net and have a nap. If any of the kids scored a goal, he would moan if they celebrated too loudly and woke him up. Because Drew slept through every lesson, he always found himself bottom of the class. When Drew snoozed in lessons, he would dribble all over his desk. Zzz, plop, zzz, plop, zzz, plop. The dribble would trickle down to the floor, where a large puddle of drool would collect. If the lesson was dreaded double history, the dribble would end up as something of a pool. No one knew quite what was in Drew's dribble. It was transparent like water, but thick and sticky like glue. One time his history teacher, Miss Past, ran over to Drew's desk to shout at him for falling asleep in class again. The unfortunate lady slipped on the dribble and shot across the floor and flew straight out the window. Ah! She was found upside down nearby a hedge where her tweed skirt was over her head, her big frilly knickers flapping in the wind. The day our story starts, there was a school trip. Natural History Museum. This was a wonderful place, full of all sorts of treasures, from moon rock to dinosaur skeletons. The museum even found a life-sized blue whale. As Drew's class pulled up outside the museum in the school coach, Miss Nubbings, the science teacher, handed out dreaded worksheets.
Now listen carefully, children. On these worksheets, I want you to make a list of all the exhibits you see in the museum today.
Do we have to, sir? Moaned Dribbling Drew, sniffled and yawned. Dozing on the coach for an hour had tired the boy out, and was now ready for bed. A pool of drool had collected at his feet.
Yes, Drew, we have to.
Yelled the teacher.
And I want you to stay awake during the visit.
Mr. Nubbins turned his back for the rest of the class.
Now everyone, the pupil who writes down the most exhibits will come top of class. So keep looking and listening for the whole time, right? Out you get!
As they walked through the museum's giant wooden doors, all the children marvelled at the huge skeleton of the Diplodocus, which took pride in place in the great hall. But Drew simply yawned. Then he broke away from the teacher and the classmates, and found a nice quiet place to nap. It was on top of a glass case, housing a stuffed dodo, a bird that had become extinct centuries before. No one would disturb him up there. Drew climbed up using the stuffed giraffe as a ladder. He lay down and closed his eyes. Then he slept, and slept, and slept, and dribbled, and dribbled and dribbled. The boy could sleep absolutely anywhere, standing up during a rock concert, hanging upside down from a tree, even on a roller coaster, when everyone else around him was screaming. This particular day, Drew slept for so long that he was still asleep when the Natural History Museum was locked up for the night. Without anyone realizing, he was still there when all the lights were turned off. All night, Drew slept. As he slept, he dribbled. Zzz, plop. Zzz, plop. Zzz, plop. Drew dribbled and dribbled and dribbled. Then he dribbled some more. The spot of drool beneath him spread into a puddle. Soon it was a lake of spittle. By dawn, Drew's sea of dribble had filled the entire Natural History Museum. In the morning, Winston, the burly guard, arrived bright and early to unlock the doors and open the museum as he did every day. However, this was no ordinary day. The first thing Winston noticed was a transparent fluid oozing underneath the doors.
That's very strange, he thought out loud. Maybe one of the daft old professors left a tap running.
Next, the security guard dipped his toe of his boot into the liquid, and realizing it couldn't be water from a leaky pipe, whatever it was thick and sticky. Worried that the museum might have been flooded, Winston flung open the giant wooden doors as fast as he could. Nothing could have prepared Winston for what happened next. Whoosh! A tidal wave of drool washed him clean off his feet and found himself travelling at speed down the street. Wow! The big man screamed like a baby. Closely behind the security guard floated some of the biggest exhibits from the museum. A stuffed polar bear, the life-size cast of the blue whale, even the Diplodocus skeleton. They all bobbed along the streets of London on the river of Dribble. Atop the glass case that housed the dodo was Drew. In all of the commotion, he finally woke up from his long sleep. As he floated down the road, the flood of his own spittle destroyed everything in its path. Cars, lorries, and even buses were swept off their feet and began bobbing on the colossal ooze of drool. Drew leapt off the glass case onto a rooftop nearby. From that safe place, he watched more of the exhibits from the museum pass by. Giant bird eggs, a stuffed gorilla, a model of an elephant. The boy reached into his blazer pocket. He still had the worksheet his teacher, Mr. Nubbins, had given him at the start of the school trip. Drew made a note of everything he saw. Every single exhibit from the museum floated past, and he wrote them all down. Mars rock, a Neanderthal skull, a marble statue of Charles Darwin, a giant squid, a stuffed vulture, an earthquake machine, a model T-Rex. The list went on and on. A seahorse in a pickle jar, a model volcano, a fossil of a prehistoric fish, a space suit, a stuffed giraffe, an old lady clinging to her shopping. Oh, hang on. That's a real old lady. A model of a woolly mammoth. To his credit, Dribbling Drew spent hours listing everything he saw as the gushing river of drool swept all the museum's precious exhibits to sea. The next day in class, Drew proudly handed in his worksheet to Mr. Nubbins. Aside from a few spots of dribble, it was perfect. After looking through all of his pupils' work, the science teacher announced the results.
I can now reveal that the winner of the 100% is Drew,
said Mr. Nubbins. The boy was top of the class the very first time in his life, before he was promptly expelled. As a punishment for destroying everything in the Natural History Museum, Drew was put to work there. His job was to reassemble the Diplodocus skeleton that had been removed from the bottom of the sea. He was not able to stop until the giant jigsaw was finished. Dribbling Drew didn't get any sleep for the next 10 years.